Do you ever feel stuck, like you are living your life on autopilot? Are you ready to shift into high gear and reach the success you so richly deserve? Welcome to the Play Big Movement podcast. I am your host, Sharon Lecter, entrepreneur, business strategist, and best-selling author. Playing big is not about settling for good enough or being comfortable. It is about reaching your highest potential and achieving your greatest success. Join me in my Play Big movement as I interview top experts in business, money, and entrepreneurship, all ready to serve you and to help you play big, be number one in your field, live your legacy, and create maximum impact. Welcome to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast. As you know, a lot of times I'll say I'm introducing you to somebody that I'm just meeting today. That is not the case here. Todd Hartley and I've known each other. We figured back down to 2007 when we both worked for an initiative to really bring women's health to the forefront and empower her with my dear friend Michelle Robeson at the time, now Michelle Robeson Worth. So I'm excited to reconnect with Todd Hartley. Todd, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Oh my God, I just got chills. I'm so excited to get to do this with you. It's going to be fun.
Well, you've become a real superstar in your field. You were back then too, but now you really have just knocked it out of the park. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit because you are someone who took COVID and adapted quickly and turned it into a huge opportunity for you and everybody that works with you. So I want to talk about that. But first, I always like to ask my guests about little Todd, how you started and how you got to where you are.
Well, there's the second chills in our conversation that's just getting started. I grew up struggling with attention disorders and learning disabilities and dyslexia. Sharon, I was in all the slow kid classes. The net result of that was I was humiliated. I was ashamed. I just struggled with a lot of like frustration issues. And in the playground, I was really quick-witted and I could hang with all my friends. Athletically, I was one of the best, but academically, I was very far behind. But I had this vision, even as a little Todd, that I was going to be on the biggest stage in the entire world. And the gap between where I was and where I wanted to go was like the Grand Canyon just north of us. It was a ginormous gap that I needed to figure out how to fill if I wanted to live the life that I envisioned for myself.
Well, I want to take a step back to something you said, because so many kids who have that experience of, being beaten down and having learning disabilities don't have the same self-confidence that I know you have. So what do you think the secret to your self-confidence was at that time?
I always believed that I was going to do something important and that I had purpose. And I believed that I wanted to have impact on this world. And I was committed to that. And I didn't know what it looked like, except I knew that I was going to, have a life of service one way or another. My parents were entrepreneurs. I went to work with them on most days in the summer. And when we would drive around in the car, we would have smart entrepreneurial conversations. And I was partially raised by my grandparents. So my grandparents saw that there was potential inside of me. And my grandfather was an early pioneer of American metaphysics, and he believed in the power of the mind and that you can overcome anything. And Sharon, poured that into me. Whenever we'd sit in in traffic in LA, which was like every day sitting in traffic, I was his best patient, and he just poured into me, and I absorbed it because I too believed when I was in the slow kid classes that I deserved to be somewhere else. I just couldn't read very well. I definitely couldn't write, and I couldn't pay attention. So that was, here's the secret. I could pay attention in something that I was interested in. If I was interested and I had passion, I would stay focused on that topic all day. So all I had to do was unravel that and surround myself in things I was passionate about, and life became very easy.
So parents, when you have children out there struggling, listen to this, rewind it and listen to it. It's about you pouring your belief in them that there's a brightness, a future,
Yeah.
so that they can see something beyond their current circumstance. So this led your career, you ended up in really doing digital media for iHeartRadio and probably a few
Yeah.
things before that, but then truly you became a pioneer in understanding digital marketing, digital media. So talk a bit about that journey, because you were there
Yeah.
when it was really a baby.
Yes. So 1999 KTAR, which is in Phoenix, the number one station of record in Arizona. I was 26 years old and I got hired to do a weekend show. And, I'm like fresh out of college and I got a gift to gab and interact with people. And um, I started a website in 1999. KTR didn't have a website. And um, it was before the station. So I started a website. I started learning my own, just trial and trial. You couldn't learn anything about digital marketing back then. There was no book on search engine optimization, and nobody knew what that was. And on top of it, I started creating content, and then I would evaluate how people would come to my website. And before I knew it, Sharon, by maybe 2001 or 2002, my news site, Phoenix News, was generating 36 million visitors a year on zero ad dollars. And I was out tracking the paper of record, the Arizona Republic. And by 2003, iHeart found out about me, moved me from my home of Scottsdale, Arizona, to where I grew up, to LA, where I worked at iHeart for 4 years until I figured out how to get myself back to the place I call home, Arizona. And that's where you and I ran into each other. And we started trailblazing in the medical space, how to patients get information. This is like the early days of WebMD. And we started a startup and we started creating the first video medical encyclopedia on the internet. And I was the one who traveled and did 8,000 interviews around the country for 4 years. And it was an incredible launching pad because I developed friends in all of these medical device and diagnostic companies, which eventually down the road became clients of my agency. And it was just been an incredible journey. But really, how did it get started? Trial and trial, learning, discovering, seeing how the audience responds, and adjusting.
Well, Todd, I see all these awards behind you. So tell us about all your accolades.
Yeah, thank you. So these are Telly Awards. They're given out by the same people that do the Emmys and the Oscars, and they're for marketing, for online initiatives. So some of them are for documentaries or for long videos. Some are for online campaigns, but most of them, like University of Arizona, and then large companies like Fortune 500s that we got to do some really cool things for. And the part I like the best is, the very first one, the one on the edge there, is the day my team in San Francisco said to me, we don't, it doesn't make sense. Our company's grown so much. It doesn't make sense for you to be on all these shoots anymore, Todd. Like, we were doing thousands of videos a year for companies. And I was really bummed because I liked being at the shoot. Now, this is great for anybody that's thinking about scaling their business and how the owner becomes the bottleneck. And I was bummed. And the last time I held the camera was the first time my agency won a major award. And so that's why it sits right there on the end. And I learned how to scale and get out of the way so people who are better than me could take the ball and run with it.
I love that. I absolutely love it. So you literally grew from the ground up, and you actually have a best-selling book called Accelerating Yes.
Yes.
And I think you have such a wealth of knowledge and probably an innate ability to see what's missing when you go into a company because you've been in the agency. I mean, my public accounting experience gave me great insights into how companies became successful, but more importantly, how they failed. And so you have all that experience that you go and help companies. Um, but you had the opportunity to work with Tony Robbins and educate his sales team, and that was during COVID. So you truly stepped in and helped his company skyrocket, even though it was highly successful already. You had the innate knowledge to help him do that. Talk a little bit about that experience.
Well, when my grandfather and I were in the car sitting in LA traffic, we would listen to Tony Robbins tapes together. And I've been a lifelong follower. So when I got the phone call, at this point, Tony was a client of my agency, Wirebuzz. And so we were doing marketing for him. But Sharon, when you plant a seed, you just make a little comment, and then a client comes back weeks later, and that seed has, unbeknownst to you, has started to sprout, and now they've got an opportunity. So leading up to the very beginning of the pandemic, I was on the phone with Tony's team, and they asked if I had to lay people off because of the pandemic. And I said, actually, we've never been busier, because one of my superpowers is I teach businesses how to sell using the power of video, either remotely or in person, so they can win more deals. And the response was, oh, that's amazing. And then I didn't hear anything about that. I just guess I planted a seed. But by the end of March 2020, Tony called and asked me if I would start training his companies in how to sell using video. And Sharon, my staff was already locked down at home. I had a expensive top floor agency in Scottsdale, which it was probably like a $4 or $5 million, basically a mortgage payment that I was paying without anybody being there. And when I got off the phone, I just started like whimpering. Like, I just sat at my desk and whimpered, and the rest of the day I wasn't productive. And a couple of weeks later, 10 days later, I started training his companies. And in his personal portfolio, there are 105 businesses that I trained at the same time. Revenue went through the roof. And then he said, brother, I got to push you out there, and you got to start teaching this to people all over the world. And now I'm doing 10 to 15 appearances a year for him. And it's been nothing short of life-changing, because not only do I get to impact more people, but I get to help carry on the mission that Tony started and give back to one of the primary people that really poured into me in my life.
I love that. And that,
Yeah.
the importance of mentorship and understanding the value of contribution. And again, that innocent comment that you made turned
Yes.
into that incredible. So I just love that story. So what are you working on right now? I mean, you're obviously, that takes a lot of your time, your agency and the stuff you're doing with Tony. But tell me what's happening right now. What's percolating? Because there's always something percolating up there.
Always something. My poor wife. And so I'm right now I've got a digital marketing agency in Scottsdale called Wirebuzz. I've got a SaaS product that helps individuals and business leaders and salespeople use my strategies and sell with video and close deals faster. And I have a speaking coaching business, and that keeps me busy. But if I wasn't busy enough, I'm in production right now on 2 Netflix style documentaries that are in the health and wellness space. And I'm also in the process of writing my second book. And so I keep it busy around here, but there's just a lot of cool, exciting things happening. And I don't think I'd do it any other way.
Well, it keeps you young, Todd.
It sure does. It sure does.
I was speaking somewhere yesterday, and the promoter said, "Yes, she's come out of retirement to speak to us." I'm going, "What?" I'm trying to be a little pickier about what I do because I am getting older, but no, I don't believe in retirement. When you love what you do,
Yeah.
it's a passion that feeds you.
And you're also prolific, like the content that you provide, the books, the impact, it's jaw-dropping to me. And um, it's exciting. And my wife and I have the same thing. People are like, so what are your plans later on when you're thinking about retiring? We're like, no, we love to work. We love to serve and give, and that won't ever stop. I'd be bored.
Yeah, well, I would probably just dry up, sitting on a couch watching TV is not my idea of fun. I do
Right.
sit with my husband. He wants to watch something. I'll sit there. I'm on my iPad, or I'm reading, or I'm doing something to keep my mind focused on other things.
I do the same thing. As soon as when he turns on the Hallmark channel, the second device gets onto my lap.
Little insights into our marriages. So,
Yeah.
but 44 years later, I guess we figured out how to make it work. So,
Oh, that's so great. Congratulations.
well, I'm excited. So what's the second book about, Todd?
Sharon, I have to tell you, I've probably had 6 sets of chills in this conversation. So this is the first time I'm publicly talking about it. I'm working on a book about how I gamified my personal development. I call it growth games. And I struggled in a lot of areas. Dyslexia, my inability to read. I had asthma. I had attention disorders. I wanted to be a speaker, but I had focus problems. And so I took all of my deficiencies and plotted them, and then created repetitious growth games throughout my day. And I exercise them when I'm by myself, like when I'm in the car. Instead of listening to music and I know the words by heart, I invest that time into developing my strengths and my weaknesses. So in examples like, well, I'll give you an example of asthma. And this one's for me. You guys talk with your physician about you, but I had exercise-induced asthma. And I challenged myself to say, maybe your just cardiovascular health needs to be stronger. Maybe it's a muscle, like you're going to the gym. Maybe you need to exercise your lungs every day. So I would put myself on a run 3 or 4 days a week. And eventually I weaned myself off the inhaler to now it's just there if I'm having an emergency. And before I knew it, that little growth game developed a lot of strength. I did this with my inability to read. I could only read a paragraph. And then I wouldn't even at that point remember what I read. So I created a little growth game that every day I would read a paragraph, and then it became a full article, and then it became the page in the newspaper. And before I knew it, I had the ability to read on live radio. And I just did this for everything, even speaking. If you're afraid to speak, not sure what to say, you can challenge yourself that every time you take the dog out on a walk, you put your headphones in so people think you're talking to a client, and you work on speaking extemporaneously, like performing it on the top of your head and then having it come out of your mouth. And before I knew it, the gap that I had, which once was like the Grand Canyon, had a really nice bridge of developed talent that got me to the other side. So I want to teach people that they could create these little 2-minute growth games and gamify their personal development. And I believe they'll be unstoppable.
That's huge. I don't know of anything else out there like it. So keep me posted. I'd love
I
to
will.
hear more about it. So let's go more to the business of what you do. And that is for a lot of business owners out there. And I'm actually asking this for myself as well. We've been in this era of Facebook ads. We're really fueling a lot of people's businesses big time.
Right.
And now we're seeing the efficacy of that being less impactful, or probably maybe we just need to understand it better with different algorithms changing, and things that worked aren't working anymore. Audiences, emails getting tighter. It's harder to email, lots of restrictions. What do you see? Is there a sweet spot for digital advertising or digital promotion? I see YouTube seems to be much more popular, which of course is your video expertise, but talk to me a little bit about what you see as effective digital marketing efforts today.
So I think the most effective digital marketing is marketing that is designed for a specific group, not one size fits all. Like way back in the day, Sharon, when online ads came up, people were walking around, myself included, saying things like, these ads don't work. And what we realized was, if I fast forwarded like another 5 or 6 years, they work if the ad is personal about a very specific population's need, pain, frustration, driving them to a landing page that has the same messaging based on the same needs, pain, and frustrations. Because when the recipient watches that video and then they go to the landing page, they need to have instant reassurance that they're on the same personalized and relevant path. Once you get that, now the ads start to scale and it becomes really interesting. But what I'm seeing currently that's working really well is a video ad to a landing page where at any time on demand, there is a 10-minute training video on a topic. And after that, click a button to buy the course. Like, this works really, really well. It's scalable. If the price point is below for that type, if the price point is below like $1,700 or $1,800, you're less likely for that audience member to need to talk to a salesperson, which helps you not have to incur a commission cost. Like, there's a lot of wiggle room in this, in the sense that you can, instead of doing an on-demand video, you could be doing a webinar. I think webinars might have the highest conversion because it's a slower experience. You can pour into people and add value, and they can go from feeling like they're being sold to and have their protection up to lowering their guard and then knowing you're a trusted advisor. Like, those are things. Oh, but you know what? We're doing this I'm doing this for a company right now. And when I say I mean like my agency. We do this for a lot of businesses with high tickets, like $250,000, $500,000 projects, where it starts and the person goes into a video and then into a meeting, or a webinar into a meeting. We've got a medical school that we're leading this. It was costing them, a medical student, it's going to cost them about $450,000 to go through medical school. And that's just the loans. They're going to end up with about 1.9 million in debt after medical school. And what we're seeing right now, when you run ads to a webinar, it was costing $27,000 to acquire that student for a medical school. You know the name. And when we're doing a webinar setup, we've brought that price down to $7,000 to cost per acquisition on a $450,000 transaction. It's like unbelievable. So I think the most important takeaway for people is, create inside your organization a culture where testing and learning and looking at the numbers and the data is a healthy action for optimization. And you'll discover that there are places where you can bring your costs down tremendously and start to scale your company.
I love that. So let's talk about how people can find you, Todd, because
Yep.
I'm sure there's a lot of people interested in, tell me more. So how can they find you?
Wirebuzz.com is my agency. ToddHartley.com is my speaking coaching business. My SaaS product, my video selling tool, is clarity.video. And I'm particularly passionate about everything from how we gain attention from a new prospect and where we gain it. It could be on Netflix, right? It could be off of YouTube. It could also be on Facebook or emails or joint ventures or partnerships, you name it, a bunch of areas. And then how do you move people down that entire path where you access them, where you achieve influence, and then you accelerate yes, all the way to the sale. And once you've got that dialed in, business becomes a lot of fun and companies get to celebrate. And that's where I get to spend my time.
I love that. Beautifully said. I'm going to actually get your book and read it. Accelerating. Yes, I think it'd be great value for everybody based on your experience. Because you have, there's so much noise out there, so many people else, highlighting their own expertise and selling things that they haven't really earned the right. But you've been there from the beginning. You've done it for so many different people, and you've had such great success. So I'm delighted to highlight you. And
Thank you, Sharon. Would it make your audience's life easier if I gave them access to a digital download of my book?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So they could just go, and I'll make my audio book and my ebook available. And they can go to toddhartley.com/book. And there's 10 hours of audiobook right there for my #1 bestseller. And I had a ton of fun telling these stories so people can accelerate yes in their business.
I love it. And we will put that in the show notes as well. So toddhartley.com/book. Thank you so much. That's a beautiful gift. Thank you. And you're going to hang in there. We're going to do another recording for the private Facebook group. It'll be a little shorter, where we talk about the fact that success is not always a straight line, as well as talking about daily habits for success. So Todd, thank you so much. I'm just so delighted to be reconnected with you, and I look forward to the future. Thank you. And for all of you watching, rewind and listen to this. Amazing content, amazing information for you. And share it with people that you know, because that's how you help impact other people. Share the wealth, share the knowledge, and it ends up sharing the wealth. So until next time, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Play Big Movement podcast. I'm Sharon Lecter, your host, and you have a brilliant day. Thank you for listening to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast. Please subscribe to iTunes and leave us a review, as well as join us in other areas of social media: Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn @Sharon Lecter, and for Facebook, author Sharon Lecter. Thank you so much and have a fabulous day.